Good morning you all. I hope everyone is ready for this one. Welcome back to Berg Mountain Optional University's Mathematics Conference. This session in Calculations for Tomorrow, Tools in Mathematics, we cover what ought be known of squares. Won't you come along with us?
See, Chapter 3, Gamma, 3. What ought be known of squares. From Heraclites we live outside in a natural flux with the cosmos. However, in Parmenidean rigidity the multitude of things natural yields to those comprehendible and subsequently artificial. From the infinite natural world man cannot fathom. He begins with 1, 2, and 3, wherefore we call squared as equality in them is more comprehendible than things which vary. With the infinity of things with shape and volume in the natural world, straight lines may not exist outside of vision, and perfect shapes of circles, triangles, and squares, but only in the mind. As words are of objects, concepts, and other things man perceives are understood through language, without it there would neither be lines, squares, flat surfaces, or cubes, as naturally they don't exist. When squares are perceived, we know they are from man, either manufactured or in speech, as equality is only in the mind, and flatness but surfaces of straight lines. We square the natural world from north to south and from east to west to infinity, understood on Cartesian planes, while 4 even lines enclosed 2-dimensionally are called squares, and walled we call inside the law of man. Unable to control the laws of nature, which when inclement conflict that of man art may be preserved, which is why what's inside we've termed artificial. Those of the Senate represent those within the small walls of society, theoretically evenly square, where citizens and senators are equally men and citizens, relatively autonomously sovereign of their own spheres of influence under the law. With those outside the law in nature unrepresented, neither may they enjoy the equality of others, lawful, falling somewhere above or below the standard of living afforded those under the auspices of their senators. As things square are those halved twice, without understanding equality neither may one comprehend things flat, square, or cubed, where architecture based on squares is artificial.
As things square are those halved twice, man's default in peace of equality between one and another may not deny at least another other who both represent an outside walled becomes inside protected from inclemency. Yet to consider Euclid geometry we are but counting to the number 4, whereas whatever 4 things are they are all man considers similarly and equally whatever 2 twices of those things. When a pair of shoes, a jacket, and a t-shirt are of the same brand, sure, they are equally 4 things, however unequal products, but with a common brand, things of different material, size, matter, and form are united where the 4 things are but 1 4. The 13 English colonies, when united and having become states, differed in population as with Rhode Island's comparison to Virginia. States with smaller populations argued that they were equally states where the Connecticut Compromise would yield the bicameral legislature of upper and lower houses we enjoy today. As men with 2 children are just as much men as those with 7 or 11, quantities opposed to quality would fester in the lower house, while in the upper house 2 senators from each state would legislate. Sure, women are generally weaker than men physically, but squared inside walls man must prove civil, as no community prefers children born in mangers outside the law of man where nature reigns. As if the institution of marriage and longevity of man's legacy were supported in nature, straight lines, halves, and squares we've yet to see from her.
Without understanding equality neither may one comprehend things flat, square, or cubed, where laws of man ensure those in society remain so equally and squared. Why many don't consider those named variants of Steve those of Saint Eve is beyond us, but in order for any of us to remain here today in peace we have to at least think our fathers cared for our mothers, where those born in wedlock are more assured of that than those not. None of us know really how we got here nor how we are living, but squared men come and go in peace, knowing 1 man equals 2 people. What governs man but branches of morality where legislature is executed, and actions judged right or wrong where right is squared, and we all, individually a fourth, march forth with the Senate and state. As 1 superscript 2 is but 1, 2 superscript 2 is 4, and every man inside walls but a 1/4, as without another there wouldn't be 3, where without 3 RDS, we couldn't comprehend 1/4 S. A state of peace and equilibrium is in the square, which is proof the earth is moving either closer or further away from the sun to burn or freeze in the depths of outer space.
Architecture, based on the square, is artificial, where in space and time man protects himself from nature with walls, artificially, artistically, and eventually, baroque. As Earth's rotation seems in balance, and man's attempts at art are greater appreciated when mimicking men in peace require fewer walls. The de facto capital of the Netherlands, The Hague, Den Haag, or the earlier de Gravenhage translates to the Count's Wood, being his hunting grounds, had less emphasis on walls before the 80 Years' War. We build walls to protect us from nature, which includes watergezen, sea beggars, taking over its coastal town, who worse than invading soldiers mortalize all men and fertilize all its women regardless of nobility. Evangelically, 1 was halved, 2 was squared, and 3 was cubed under the Lord, equaling 7, to whom we dedicate the audio book. To think Mr. and Mrs. Hag taught me architecture at university. Anywho, circular things are considered circles and triangular things thought triangles, but as perfection of squares are mental, they are known not so perceived, as circular things are circles, but the proper term is rectangular. As the first shape considered before circles or triangles, and the first number of what 1 was is 4, so angled from the top and having a plane with 1 pen stroke, x-axis, into north and south, the 2 squared are halved by a downward stroke, y-axis, from the top to bottom, thus the number 4. Whatever etymology as to why numerical characters are so, I may have just championed.
Things halved twice are square, and we comprehend things flat and square 2-dimensionally with walled or cubed 3, while architecture mimics nature in Baroque. Perfect squares are only mental preceding geometry and the only doorway to it. square s superscript 2 in walls are man's nature as architects, being artificial mimicking nature best as one may forth.
That concludes the information we have for you this time. Next session, God willing and the creek don't rise, we'll discuss expressing functions of quadratic planes. We can't wait to see you there. Thank you for your time and consideration.